This video is about building trains within the Southern Indiana Railroad JMRI program. Start Panel Pro. It will open up the route files, and if there are any error messages, handle those before continuing. The main thing you're going to deal with is this little box, this Panel Pro. This is the primary place you're going to get to the operations. Click on it, and we're going down to Trains. Click on Trains, and this box pops up. Going to get rid of these extraneous boxes. This box pops up. It shows all of the trains that are defined in the Southern Indiana Railroad JMRI program. And I have no idea what Trains Thursday means. Something in the configuration, but apparently it's always Thursday. So we're going to take a look at the boxes here real quick. Build reports. These can be pretty complex. Typically I leave those unselected, but I'm going to turn it on our previews here just to show you what it is. If you are trying to figure out why a train isn't getting enough cars, why it's not dropping something at a certain location, build reports will typically have that information, but you really got to dig through it, and they're tough to decipher. And to begin with, I'm going to leave this on preview. I'm going to leave preview checked. Don't worry about these boxes over here. These radio buttons, we'll get to them in another video. But we'll come up here, and let's say this passenger, this will be simple. We're going to click build on this, and you can see that button changes to say preview. That's because you have this preview clicked here. If preview is not clicked, it goes directly to print. However, I think you're going to want to look at that train before you waste paper and ink printing it. So let's click on the preview. And two boxes have actually popped up here. There's the manifest, and you can see it's put in Notepad. Now it'll print in its own little format, but the preview is in Notepad. And you can look here and make sure it makes all the stops in the right place. This is for passengers, so there's no car switching here. But these are stops only. This is the build report. And this has no switching at all. All it does is starts and stops. That's it. And you can see how long that is with nothing to go on. There's no car switching involved there. So I'm going to close this out, X out this box. This manifest looks okay. I'm going to close it out. Deselect preview and go up here to print. And here's the box. Make sure you have your printer connected and turned on, and you can click OK. And you'll have a printout of the manifest for that train. And it will say printed. Now let's move on to one. Now that train is built. And right here, I'm going to mention this several times. Once you have built a train, save builds. Save builds. Wear that button out. Just save builds. Anytime you do something that changes the status of this program, save builds. Save builds. Remember, save builds. If I haven't mentioned it before, remember, save builds. Okay, let's move on to an actual freight train. Western Shifter leaves town at 7:45 a.m. we're going to click on build. Actually, let's get preview up here first. Have preview selected, click build. Now we're going to preview that. Remember, we have the build reports selected here also. Preview. And again, 2 boxes have popped up here. And we're not going to go through these build reports. That's beyond the scope of what we're trying to do. But you can see how detailed this is. And if you're looking for problems in the route, in the locations, you can probably find it here. But it's not really simple. It takes a lot of study. Here's the manifest. First thing you'll look for is, does it look like it's doing any work? Okay, you're picking up 5 cars at New Albany, doing a pickup set out at Fireproof. These locations, by the way, are set in routes under the operations menu. We won't go through that here. Those routes are predetermined, and this train is assigned to that particular route. So it looks like it makes a stop and does some work at every one of the locations, which is what you're looking for. That's good. If you don't see pickups, it could be there are not any cars at that location. That's a possibility. If you don't see any setouts, it's possible there were no available cars at the primary location. And the way the program's set up, it does not route cars in between locations. It will take them from a yard, and anything you pick up is going to be returned to a yard. So when you get to the end of the route, you have 2 cars that you picked up during your run that are going to be set out at Salem Yard. So that looks pretty good right there. So we're going to X this box out. This is Notepad. We're going to deselect preview and going to print it. So you now have that one printed also. I'm clicking cancel because there's no point in printing them at this location. And let's go to another one. Let's do this energy run westward. And let's click on preview. And I'll leave build reports up here for just a moment. So I'm going to click build, and then we're going to click preview. And again, 2 boxes have popped up here. Here's the build report. And that sucker's long. There's a lot of information in here. Study it if you want to, but if you get your routes working, it shouldn't be necessary. Okay, let's see if this train is going to do some work here. At New Albany Yard, it's going to pick up 9 cars. And your first spot is Barclay Coal Mine. And it looks like you're going to set out all 9 of those cars, and you're going to pick up 10 cars there. That's a pretty good set of work right there. Then you depart and you go to Salem, and you're going to do these setouts of the 10 cars. The yard master will have the other part of your consist already put together for the second part of the run. So you'll pick up the second part of your consist, which is 9 cars, and you're going to go to Rock Miller Refining, do some setouts and some pickups, and then you terminate at Bedford Yard and do the setouts there. So that's a pretty good amount of work there. You can have a full train. So we're going to close that box out. We like the looks of that. Deselect preview and print. So now that one's printed. You've got these trains built. And if I failed to mention it before, save builds, save builds. What the program does is it finds available cars, assigns them to the train, which makes those cars unavailable for any other trains from that yard at that time. Now, if you neglect to do save builds and something happens that you lose power or something, then those cars are no longer part of that train. So just remember, save builds constantly. And these transfers, if you have, for instance, too many cars at New Albany, let's do a New Albany to Bedford. And if we're going to, let's take a preview of that. There it did. Gave you 9 cars that you can take to Bedford. If you get too many stacked up in one spot, we've got 3 separate transfers here that can get rid of some cars from any place you want. So we're going to close that out. Now I'm going to decide not to build that train. So I don't want to print it. Forget about it. I'm going to go over here and reset it. I click reset. It says train reset. What this button does here is determined by what you have selected down here on these radio buttons. So right now, while we're building, we're just going to have them on reset. And all that does is that makes those cars that you had just assigned to that train, makes them available at the yard location again, like it was never done. So we're going to save builds again. And you have got your trains built, ready to give the manifests out to the yard masters to build the trains, and to the respective engineers or conductors to run the trains. I think we'll call that quits here. We'll get into the actual operating session moves in another video.